because we're welcoming back a previous Career Foundry employee, Abby, who worked with us for 4 or 5 years, but now is working at Mozilla as a engineer. And we are super happy to welcome him back, and that he's going to guide you through a HTML tutorial for beginners. This is the first one we've done, so bear with us, but I think it's going to be a great skills workshop. And if you're interested in web development, this is definitely the event for you. Now, I know we've got quite a few people joining this evening, so we've got a chat on Big Mark on the right-hand side. Now, what I would say is if you're joining, maybe just drop your name, where you're joining from, and also why you're interested in data analytics. So we like to make this as interactive as possible. We want to see you, where you're joining from, so just drop your name, don't be shy. As I said, we want to make this as interactive as possible. I'll just introduce myself and Career Foundry before we kick off with the workshop. So I'm William, Events and Communications Lead here at Career Foundry. And Career Foundry is the online school for your career change into tech. So we guide you from complete beginner to job-ready professional in web development and help you land your first job in the field. But we're not any old school. Our programs are so flexible, you don't need to quit your day job to change your career. And you get regular one-to-one mentorship with not one, but two industry experts. That's a mentor and a tutor. That's our dual mentorship model. And if you don't land a job within 180 days of graduation, we refund your tuition. So that's our job guarantee. We've had lots of previous grads who've also gone through and become web developers. So if you've got any questions about the program, the curriculum, jobs, or anything that Abby discusses this evening, do save them for the end, because we are having a live Q&A and we're going to answer as many questions as possible. So I really look forward to that part. For those joining in Big Marker, you will see in the top right-hand corner, I've attached the handout for this evening's workshop. You can click and open that, and Abby will explain a lot more about that. And really, that's everything that I want to say. Abby, I'm going to hand this over to you. I'm going to drop into the background. If anyone's got any questions, I'll be in the background, so don't worry about that. And Abby, you've got the floor. You're in charge.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for such a nice introduction. Well, I am Abhishek. I am super stoked to be here. Career Foundry. I'll go through a bit about my background on the next slide, but just seeing all of the people in the chat, like coming from all the different parts of the world. So first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Here in Berlin, we had like a really nice sunny day, and I was just thinking while I was preparing for this, having loved this field so much, getting an opportunity to talk about it with the people who are also, who also share a bit of that love for the field, who want to get into that field. I feel so privileged. I feel so grateful. So yeah, thank you all for joining. Thank you all for taking the time, and hopefully we have some fun in the next 1 hour. And yeah, hopefully I'll get into the agenda. Let me just get to the next slide, which is where I'll be introducing myself in a bit more detail. So I'm Abhishek. I'm originally from India, but I live in Berlin now. I have worked at CF, so Career Foundry, for nearly 4 years. And among all the things that I did there, one of the things that I am particularly proud of is having worked on the web dev short course. So we'll talk more about that, but I got to write a short course, and that was super special for me. What am I passionate about? I'm passionate about the internet, which is super convenient for this workshop. I'm passionate about keeping it open and accessible to everyone. I recognize, like, I learned so much from the internet. It was an enabler in my life. It was like the major university part where everything that I was learning about this field came from resources on the internet, blog posts, free forums and whatnot. And I just feel like it has to be that way for generations to come. It is this public resource that we have to treasure and take care of. What do I do in my free time? These days, I've been taking pictures with my camera, which is back there. So I got myself a little camera, and I've been going around the city and taking pictures of my neighborhood, and I quite into that. And I also love writing on my blog. This is something I'll talk a bit more about when I get into the workshop itself. And currently, after CF, I joined Mozilla as an add-on security engineer. So I work on the Firefox add-ons. Yeah, so that's my current job profile. That's about me. Let me see. let's go. So let me go to the next slide. And here we have the agenda for today. So the way I'm thinking of this is, we have this workshop built around making a website. So I want you all to join me in actually making a website and actually coding it live in the next 1 hour. So that's how I've structured it. So for that, we'll obviously need tools. Any skill, you pick up any trait, you have to know the tools of the trait. And then that is where we'll be downloading some tools, we'll be installing them, we'll get our computers ready so that we can jump straight into the second topic, which is HTML and CSS programming. So I have a rough agenda. I'll show you how our end result would look like. And we'll actually be live coding that. We'll be writing the HTML for it. We'll be writing the CSS for it. And yeah, we learn things along the way, and we'll try to keep it swift. The next topic is browser tools. So as with any trade, you need tools that help you when you get stuck in a problem, when you are debugging something, when you have a bug, which is an unexpected, unwanted feature in your website. You want to be able to fix it, and you want to have tools at your disposal that will help you fix that issue. That is where browser dev tools come in, and I'll be very swiftly introducing you to some browser dev tools in the major browsers, so that when you get started on your journey, you have the tools to write code, and you also have the tools to fix things that are broken, and that will inevitably happen. So it's not because we are bad programmers, it's just that we are humans, we make mistakes, and we have support tools that help us when we make mistakes to fix those mistakes. Finally, we'll be talking about resources. So resources are, links, courses, anything that would help you after this workshop ends to keep learning, keep continuing on this journey, and hopefully have this guided path towards your journey towards becoming a web developer. So that's the rough agenda. So before we get any further, I would like to show you what are we doing today. So dun-dun-dun. This is what I came up with for today. It's a very simple website. It might resemble some popular social network, but we are not going to name names. Um, the reason I came up with this is I wanted something that has the elements of the internet, the images or text and things that you see on every website. And I want all of us to have the experience of having actually coded those things. So this is what we'll be building. We have I'll go to the next slide, and that is where we'll actually do some preparation for the workshop itself. So let's try. Okay, I mentioned the tools part. We are already in the first section, and this is where I would like Will to post the link to VS Code, Mozilla Firefox, and Google Chrome. So if you're using Google Chrome or Firefox, I would just urge you to stick to whatever you are using. If you don't already have VS Code installed, I'll urge you to download VS Code from the link that we'll just posted. Download that, install that, and have that ready. And then please also download the handout. So you'll see the handout linked in the chat. It says Web Development Workshop handout. Just download that and extract that on, say, your desktop or any place where you can find it later. Does that sound good? Yeah, and like we said, at any point, if you have any questions, just feel free to put it in the chat. Will pick it up. Will. That's a classic. We'll pick it up, and if it is something that we can address on the spot, we'll do that. If it is something for the end, we also have a Q&A section at the end where I'll be answering any and every question that you might have. So that is the idea. Okay, so while you're installing VS Code and or the browser that we recommend here, I will talk to you about this slide that I was super happy about. When we get started in a new field, it's always going to be buzzwords. It's always going to be many words in one sentence that we don't understand very well, that we wish that there was something that we could relate it to. And that is where I came up with this just quick analogy to help explain the things that we are going to be doing today, but also in your journey in the field of web development. So any web page, anything that you open on the internet, like google.com, wikipedia.org, youtube.com, anything is made up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You don't need to understand these words right now. We'll be looking at HTML and CSS in more depth. But just understand that these three ingredients make for any and every website that you see out on the internet, right? I want you to think of HTML like the skeleton of a web page. It gives structure to things. It gives purpose and meaning to content. Yes, you can just write a whole wall of text, but if the browser doesn't understand it, it would just be like this big paragraph that there would be no structure to it. The screen readers wouldn't be able to understand it. The accessibility would not be good, and search engine optimization would not be good, and so on. So if you want to give purpose and structure to the content on your web page, you need HTML. That's the skeleton. CSS in this analogy would be the skin. It is the aesthetic part. It is how a web page looks like. You go to the Guardian, or you go to any web newspaper online, or you go to YouTube. You see content structured in a different way. It doesn't have to be that way, but it is designed by someone to reflect on their styling. If you go to Career Foundry blog, you see it tries to show you certain content, and it does certain things over other things versus some other magazine on the internet, right? So these are design decisions that someone made for the audience. And those kind of design decisions can be made into reality using CSS. Will the web work without CSS? Yes, it would work, but it wouldn't be a very pleasant experience to use the web if there was no styling. It was just text everywhere, and no aesthetic. And when you have skin and when you have the skeleton, you have something that looks nice, but then the moment you touch it, it falls down. It doesn't have any interactivity. And this is where JavaScript comes in. JavaScript, in this analogy, is the muscle of the web page. It makes things move. As just as a human, you have, you can move your hands, you can dance, you can sing, you can do anything. JavaScript enables the page to, handle form validation, to handle, to check if the credit card number is valid or not, and those kind of things. It makes the page come alive and interactive. So just when we are going through the HTML section, when we are going through the CSS section, just keep that on the back of your mind that when we are writing HTML, we are writing the skeleton. We are just like, your some bones of your body are for different purpose. Your legs are stronger to support your body. Your fingers are more nuanced to do things. Similarly, when we do HTML, we'll have certain things that provide more structure and so on. And when we do CSS, we'll be looking at the style, we'll be looking at the aesthetic of the page and so on. So, okay, that was that. I hope you all have installed VS Code on your computers by now and have one of the two browsers recommended. Okay, so we can actually get started with HTML right now. If there are any questions, please feel free to just drop them in the chat and we'll pick them up, right? All right. So HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. When I first started learning HTML, I was super curious about the word hypertext. For me, it was like, when we are teenagers, we want to have like cool handle, hypertext, cool kid, 96 or whatever. And I just thought, wow, the hypertext sounds so fancy. And much later in my journey, I decided to dig into what it means. And it means nothing fancy. It just means text that can help you transport from one place to the other. So the thing is, internet is a network of networks. The web as we know it is just different computers talking to each other. So when you're on google.com, you search something and you find a link to Wikipedia or Facebook. You click it. And now you're on wikipedia.org or facebook.com. These are completely different websites hosted in different geographical areas of the world. They have nothing in common except that they are on the same internet. And this hypertext, this HTML, this link that you click that takes you there is what enables this teleportation. And it's pretty cool. I mean, HTML does a lot more than this, but I just thought it was pretty cool that they just put that as like in the name of the in the acronym itself. Like we established, HTML gives structure to the contents of the page. So it defines how something, what something should be doing. It defines something is an image versus something is an hyperlink, like a link that you click on versus something that is just a heading, and so on. HTML is made up of HTML elements. So an HTML element has a name. So in this case, you can see that there is an H1 element, so heading 1. And then inside of that element, we put some text in. That is the text of that element. And then the second line is P, standing for paragraph. Whether it is an image, whether it is a video, whether it is just plain old text or an input field where you put your email address and password to log in, these are all HTML elements. These are defined by HTML tags. And we will be looking at some HTML tags today. So we will be looking at anchor link. We'll be looking at an image tag, so IMG. We'll be looking at H1, H2, H6. These are all heading tags. These define the title of the page, the subtitle, and so on. We have the plain old paragraph tag. This is just a paragraph of text. That's exactly what it is. And then we'll look at a very special tag, which is the div tag or the division tag. And this is something I would like to come back to when we actually are also talking about CSS. So this is where I would like to move us to the coding section. So let me just quickly try to share my screen. Share screen. Screen 2. All right. Can you see my screen? Good.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Yeah. So I have downloaded the Career Foundry, so the webinar handout zip file here on my desktop. And I have installed VS Code. This is VS Code on my computer. And I'll just double click it. Depending on your operating system, you might have to right click it and then extract it. But at the end of it all, you should have like a folder, right? And the way I usually do it is I just drag this folder into the Visual Studio Code icon. So I do that, and it should open Visual Studio Code. So it should have this one images folder with a bunch of images, and then it should have this index.html file. This should be empty. If you can't do that, I'll just show you how. Alternatively, you can also open Visual Studio Code, which will just open like this empty screen, and then you can click File, Open Folder, and you can just go to Desktop and this folder, and then open it. So that should open a new window with that folder. So assuming you have gotten this far, we can actually start with programming HTML now. How are we doing on time? Okay, good. So I have an image here of the website that we are trying to build. I want you to look at the website and ignoring all the styling stuff, just look at all the text, images, and content that exists on this website. So taking a look here, I can see there is this best pets on the internet text. There is this best pets username. There's like a description. There's a profile picture. I can see like 6 images, and I can see this classic copyright footer. It's called footer because it's at the foot. So let's just try to put all of these things with HTML in the page. It would not look super pretty, but let's just first try actually if we can make the page work. So let me quickly. Okay, first let's just check if we can actually get this page to work. Hello, CF. Let's just try this, and then I have a fresh browser installed so that we can try things out. And then I have opened file colon the path to my desktop, and then on my desktop I can actually see the folder that I just created, right? That I have opened in my VS Code. So if I click the folder and if I click the index.html file, I can actually see hello CF, and I can see it in bold, which makes sense because I used H1, which is heading 1, which is the biggest heading. So just as an example, if I make it H2, it will become a bit smaller. You see? Right. So this is just to confirm that this path that we opened our website in is correct, because we can see that this text that we just wrote, and we can make changes to it. Hello, people. And we refresh it, and then it loads. They're just confirming to myself that my setup is correct, and I can actually go to the more interesting part, which is actually coding my website. Cool. So I have a big title here. Wait, not just yet. I'll tell you something. Any HTML document has to have certain tags that don't necessarily do anything. Apparently, you would think that they don't do anything, but they tell the browser, what kind of document it is, what section is supposed to go where, and so on. I'll just show you. So, doc.type HTML. This line should be present in all of your HTML files. It tells the browser that this is a doc of the HTML type, right? This is HTML5. You need to put this, and then you need to put an HTML tag. So the HTML element is also HTML, and this is always the outermost element on the page. So we write as HTML by nesting things. So we write an HTML element, and then we put things within it, inside of it, and so on. So HTML element is the root. It has to be the outermost element. And then I can write here head, and then I can write here body. Okay, what did I just do? Couple of things. So I created a head section, a head tag. So you can see that it says head, and then it is surrounded by these square braces that tells the browser that this is a special instruction. This is a head tag. Similarly, this is a body tag. And every HTML document has to have a head tag and a body tag within the HTML tag. Now, head section is all the things on the page that you don't necessarily see within the page. So I'll actually give you a quick example. So we just wrote h1 hello world, right? And then if we go here actually, we can see we get hello world. But if you look at the browser's title here, it just says system volumes. It just basically says what page I'm on. But then if you actually go to google.com, it actually says Google. It doesn't say www or HTTPS or whatever, right? How do they do that? Well, for that, we need to use the head section. Here, we can have a title tag, and here we can write best bets on the internet. Save it. So every time you write something, you have to do control command S or control S if you're not on if you're on Windows or Linux, or you can always do file and save. And then you have to go back, and then you refresh the page, and then you can see here, instead of system volume, we now see best bets on the internet. So the title that we gave to this document, to this page, is actually getting shown at the tab heading, right? So that is how the head section works. It is all the things that are not part of the white space, the web page itself. Cool. So we have that. Again, any questions, keep dropping them, and we'll take them. Okay, what are we doing? Yep. Now, I need this H1. I need an image of that is the profile picture. I need the username and I need the description, right? So let me just quickly do that. I already have the H1, so I'll just repurpose that to best bets on the internet. And then I had a profile picture, which is an image tag. So we come to our first interesting HTML tag. H1 had stuff inside of it that gets rendered as that style, right? Image tag doesn't actually have this. It doesn't have stuff inside of it. What it does is it just has an attribute, an SRC attribute. SRC, standing for source, is the place where the browser is supposed to grab the image from and then show on the page. So if I just save this and if I refresh it, there would be nothing because I didn't give it anything. I didn't give the browser a place to grab the image from. So I need to do that with my images folder that it should be part of the handout. And let's select the profile picture. You can see the VS Code is already allowing me to see all the files in that folder. This is an advantage of using a nice text editor. I save it, I go back, I refresh, and ta-da, we have a profile picture. So we have an image, we have a title. Let's quickly also add a paragraph tag for our username, which is best bets. And then we have another paragraph, which was our description, which is, what's the description? Curating the best pet pictures for you all. Curating the best pet pictures for you all. Right. Next, we have this line. The way you get that line is using the horizontal rule tag. So this is HR, and let's see. Yeah, so we have the best bets, we have the description, and then we also have the line. Yeah, I think the next section is just these 6 images and the copyright. So let's quickly also add those things. It doesn't matter if I leave a couple of lines in between and then start again. Like HTML is very permissive of white space. So depending on how I see the structure, so I see these 4 things were together. So I just make them like combine them. Then I put an HR and then I put my images. So the same way we did it before. One, and because I know I have 6 images, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I will just create 6 image tags. And I will add image pet1, and I'll just copy this. Oh, I could have just copied the whole thing. Anyway, it's also fine. Right, and then I will put 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The way this works is because I named them in that way, but obviously, depending on how the naming is, you have to match that for the browser to be able to find that image. And I can go back to my page and I refresh it, and here we go. So if I zoom out, you can see, yep. Notice that our website is supposed to always have 3 images in one row, but the website that we just built actually just fits all the images on one line, depending on how big the browser's width is, right? That's not ideal, but we'll fix that later. Okay, got it. So we have the copyright. That is the last piece of HTML that we'll be writing. So I'll just make some space. I just make it a p tag for now. So copyright. And then I'll put ampersand copy, copy, colon. So ampersand and colon, this is like the way you put HTML elements. Some special HTML characters have this special code, and you can find these all on the internet. I just remembered this one. Okay, so copyright 2023, that's the year, and best bets INC. And if we go back and refresh, yeah, so zoom in a bit. Yeah, you can see copyright, and then you get that copyright, the typical copyright symbol that I just got with this. There are many of these, so just look them up and play around with them. I would recommend. Alrighty. Actually, that was the HTML part, right? So we have everything that our final result has. But still, this one looks weird. This one, it's all over the place. It's not Yeah, it doesn't look very. It has everything. Any piece of information that this page has it. It's just not very pleasant to look at, and that is where the skin aspect of our web development journey, right? Like we did the skeleton, and now we have to focus on the skin. So at this point, we have to go back to our slides and look at CSS and how to use CSS and some basics of CSS. But I want you to just be able to reach here. If you have any questions, if you're stuck anywhere, just feel free to drop a message, and if it is possible, we'll pick them up. But I'll go back to my slides now. Where is my slides?
Abhi, there was one question that came through. And the question was, can you please explain how to open a new browser to check the website while building it? Just that one part.
Okay, sure. So you might be seeing my screen again. When I said a new browser, I just installed a new browser. Actually, I just googled Firefox nightly, which is like a version of Firefox, and I installed it nightly. Because I already have Firefox and I already have Firefox Dev Edition, so I just installed a new one. If you are interested in just getting a new profile, Chrome allows it, and Firefox also should allow you with this is also complicated. You can just open a private window, like an incognito window, and work here. It shouldn't matter if you just work in your normal browser. You don't need a new browser for working on this website. It just makes it easier because sometimes you have add-ons or something that sometimes mess your flow, break your website. So I just didn't want that. That's why I installed like a new Firefox, but you don't have to do that. But in case you're interested, just install a new browser. So if your regular browser is Google Chrome, install Firefox and do this on that. If your regular browser is Firefox, install Chrome and do it on that. But it's not required. I hope I answered the question. Alrighty. Okay. How did we? Yeah. Right. Okay. So I'm going to jump into CSS now. As we established, CSS is the skin of our website. It is how the website is supposed to look like. And if you notice, this website does need some skin, right? It's just a bunch of content everywhere. And so let's just look at what CSS is. CSS stands for cascading style sheets. It doesn't matter right now, just an acronym. It describes how a web page should look like. That's the important part. It is what makes things look that way. We can customize a lot of different aspects of a web page using CSS. This is how it looks like. So we style CSS using CSS selectors. So we already looked at HTML. So HTML is this h1 tag saying my first web page. To select that, to style that, we need to select it in CSS. We need to target it. And the way we target it is using CSS selectors. There are various CSS selectors that you can learn about. In this course, we'll just be using the class selector. So class itself, you can see h1 class equals heading. Class is an attribute on all HTML elements that allow you to select that HTML then in CSS or JavaScript. Let's actually go back into the code and look at some CSS. Actually, we need to style this there. Right. So we have this. The way we write CSS is we have multiple ways of writing CSS. The way we will write CSS today to keep things as simple as possible is we'll use a special HTML tag, which is the style tag. So it goes into the head conventionally. Style. Yeah. What this does is it tells the browser that anything that you write within this tag is CSS. It's not HTML, right? So just as a quick example, we have the h1 tag here. I'll just write h1 and I'll do color red, right? I just added some CSS. So this is not HTML, this is CSS. This is defining how my page should look like, not the structure or purpose of my page. So if I go back and I refresh, voila, we have a red H1. And that worked because this selects this tag here and then assigns the color red to it. So it's like picking something up and then assigning some things to it, right? So that's CSS selectors. When we write CSS, we write CSS with CSS selectors. The color red is a property that we give it. There are many CSS properties, and I don't remember any of them. Right? Whenever I have to change something, I just usually search the internet. So I'll do something like change color of text CSS. And then I will reach some website, let's say this one, and then it will have some help for me. Oh, they have the exact same example, well, minus the color, that we just looked at. So yeah, so like just use the internet, describe the problem that you have, and someone else would have encountered that problem for sure, and then you just get the property, and over time these things would come more naturally. Right, so we don't actually need that, so I'll remove that. Right, let's look at the design. This is a good exercise because when you are working as a web developer, you'll always get a design from a designer. When you're working as a front-end engineer, especially, you'll have like this mock-up that you have to make a website of, and it would look like this. It would be a bit more interactive than this, but you get the idea. It would look like a completed website minus the functionality and the actual code, and you have to look at it and then decide how you are going to make the website, right? So in this page, I can already see that the title, I already have this H1. That looks as it should be. What doesn't look as it should be is this image. This looks nice and like a profile picture, while this is just like an image that was thrown on this page. So let's get this image first. Let's get this image looking right first, right? So I just give this an attribute class and say profile picture.
Abhi, just to interrupt quickly, can you switch back to your screen and away from the slides so we can just see?
Oh, I'm already on my screen. Ah, right. Oh, my bad. Can you see?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, if I do that again, please let me know earlier. I'm sorry. So I'll show you what I did. I created the style tag here in the head section. This is where we'll be writing our CSS. And we'll be selecting HTML from our HTML code from our body in this case, and then we'll be styling it. So I'll quickly show you what I had just done. I put H1, and then I put color red here, and then I went back to my screen, and then this becomes red. This becomes red because I selected the H1 and I styled it, and I put color red in there. Okay, so we can remove that. We don't need this. And then I just put a class attribute on this image, this dolphin image, because it is a profile picture. I just put profile picture, but it doesn't have to be like exactly this. You can put whatever. It just has to be descriptive. And then here I can use dot profile picture. So dot is the way to select plus. So whenever you have a class, you select it in CSS using the dot selector. So this is the class selector. So profile picture, it has to be, now this has to be exactly as you wrote it here. So profile picture, open curly braces, close curly braces. And then here you can write something like, I want the width to be 80 pixels. Let's see how 80 pixels would look like. So if I go here, yeah, this is a bit more like a profile picture and not completely like big. And then because I want my profile picture to have rounded corners, I just use a special CSS property called border radius. So border radius, and I'll make it 50%. That's the way to make something rounded edges. You can also use pixel value, but this works just as well. And you have a round image that actually now looks a lot more like a profile picture that you would see on any popular social media website. Right. What is next? We need our text to be on the side of the image and not under it, just so that it looks like this profile section of our website. So the way we do that is I just make this image float left. Float is a special property that just makes an HTML element float to a certain side of the page, and then all the remaining elements that were coming under it just just stack up next to it. You see what I mean? So if I go to my page and if I refresh it, you now see my profile picture and the username and the description next to it, which is how I actually wanted to make it. You can see like this is exactly what I wanted. Right, so this is looking good. Okay, now I can actually go on to the next section and style the images a bit and make them less in our faces. And then also more importantly, 3 per row and not just arbitrary. So this is where I'll actually use, I'll show you that we checked out. I said I'll talk about the division tag, and this is where the division tag comes in handy. So going back to my screen, I know that these 3 images and these 3 images have to appear on like on each row and not all stacked next to each other. And I just use a div tag here. What div tag does is it creates this virtual box. It creates this box of stuff that you can put stuff inside. It itself doesn't mean anything. You have to use it to put other stuff inside of it, right? So I'm just using this div tag to tell the browser that these 3 images are together and these 3 images are together. And then later I can style them if I need to specifically. But let's just put them, just do this basically, not much more than that, and then go back to our page and refresh. And yeah, we already have them stacking 3 in a row. And if I zoom out and zoom back in, we see that they still stay 3 in a row, which is exactly what we want. Okay, we do want them to be smaller though. So I'll give this a class and I call it images grid. Similarly for the other one. And then just like with the profile picture selector, I'll do a dot images grid. And here, I don't want to select the div. I want to select the images inside of it. So I'll just write image here. So what this will do is it will select the class images grid, which is this. And then it will select the images. So here I'll just put width 300 pixels. And then I'll go back, I'll refresh, and yeah, now it is looking a lot more. So yeah. And then I want there to be some spacing here, right? Like this looks a lot like everything is just congested. I want to make some spacing. So I'll go back to my profile picture and I'll add some border here, and then I'll make it like 20 pixels. I guess that should work. Let's see. I can't make this work, but I can make, wait a second. Let me just make the HR margin, say 30 pixels, so that there is some spacing between the profile section and the pictures section. So now I have some spacing here. And okay, one thing that is still not correct is this page is like full width. So no matter what the screen width is, the line looks like it is going to the far end of the screen and so on, right? So I want there to be some constraints. I want the whole website to have this fixed width. And the way I do that is I will introduce a top level div. I'll just have a div here and I'll put all of my stuff that I wrote, this whole thing, I'll put that inside of it. So I'll just surround this whole thing and then I'll just make some formatting so that it looks nice and it's obvious that this is outermost and then these things are inside of it. And I'll call it a container class. And what I'll do is I'll select the container class and I'll say max width equals 990 pixels. And this is just an estimate, like I saw this is 300, I have 3 images in one row, I'm like, okay, 900, and then I need some spacing in between. So 990 pixels should do the job, right? So let's just check. Yeah, not much happened, just this line shrunk to 990 pixels in this case. And we can see the website would now, to actually see the difference, we have to like add like a background color or something. So I'll just use the container class that I already have, and I'll put background color, and I'll say light blue, so that you can see. And now you can see, so if I don't have the max width here, so if I just have like a whole page, now it is like completely just end to end, no matter what's the screen size, it just goes to the edge of the screen. But if I have this, if I have max width, now it is a bit more constrained. So even if I zoom in or zoom out, it looks the same. So that's always a good idea. Last thing I would want to do is actually this thing should just be center aligned. So this is fun. Like copyright, that line used to always be the first thing that I write on a website, and it still is quite fun to write that line for me. I don't really know what it does, but class copy. Right. So it's like this line makes your website look a lot more real, like a real website, right? So copyright. And so I wrote like a class. So I gave it a class attribute and I called it copyright. And then I just have to select that copyright. And I can say text align center. So VS Code, the text editor that I recommended, already like helps you with auto completion. So you can like already see, you can already see that these are the values that are possible. I want to make it center, so I'll select center. And if I go back to my page and refresh, here, now my copyright info is right in the center. Yeah, I think this is like basically what I planned for the CSS part. You can obviously make the whole section look in the like align in the center of the page, but this is perfectly functional, and this is good, right? So hopefully we can move back to the slides quickly, right? So I'll quickly go through some last couple of things that I wanted to cover in this webinar. Browser dev tools, like I said, there will be places where you'll struggle to find out what's really wrong with your code, where you're lacking, what is broken. And during those times, dev tools are what help you. So you can access the dev tool by clicking on those icons. So in Firefox, it's called the hamburger menu. It's like 3 dashes. And in Chrome, you have the 3 dots. It's called the kebab menu, as I just found out while actually creating the slide. What it allows you to do is it allows you to select HTML elements in the page and understand like the styling and what is getting applied. So let me just quickly go to my page and select the image. So you can right click it. So right click it and then click inspect. And it brings up this dev tools. Oops. And then I'll just zoom in a bit. And then you can see I've selected the image tag here. And then you can see that this image tag has the profile picture class, and then it has these 3 lines of CSS. These 3 lines of CSS are exactly what we wrote when we started with the profile picture styling, right? So the browser actually tells you that this is what you added. And you can actually just click here and you can just increase or decrease the size, or you can make it like 100 pixels. You can do whatever you want here, and you can just refresh the page and everything is gone. So this is also good for experimenting when you want to see what would look good, what would not look good, and so on. I'm sorry, this is a bit rushed, but yeah, I just want to quickly go through the slides here, quickly go through the recap section here. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what are the 3 pillars of the internet. We have HTML, we have CSS, we have JavaScript, and how they understanding that analogy and just having written a couple of lines of CSS and HTML code, just understanding how you build simple websites. You write HTML, you define the content that you want to put on your web page, you write CSS, you define how it would look like and so on. And with just a couple of lines of code, you already have this website, right? Okay, so slides. Yeah. We created our first website with text, images, and styling. And then we looked at browser tools, and we looked at some VS Code features like autocomplete that helped us, prototype, like build our website faster. Okay, so I'll actually go to the next steps slide. I know this was super quick, and it is really very difficult to fit, so much content and get started with web development like in 20-25 minutes. But I just wanted to give you the tools that you can use and just try to work on your own pace and just try to like realize this website that we just built. To help you, there is always the internet. The internet is amazing. I've just written it there because I think it is really amazing. You can just search for your problem. You just search for what you are trying to do. You want to get your text center aligned, just search for that, and you'll get the exact CSS code that you need to like put into your website. Apart from that, I also want to plug in this hands-on introduction to web development from scratch. This is a short, free course. This is a free self-paced web development short course. It's a 5-day course, and it goes into slightly more advanced topics than what we just did. And this is a self-paced course, so you can read the tutorial or you can watch it, and you can follow along on more lenient pace and not be rushed like we did today. The bonus is I've written that course. I'm also featured in the videos for it, and that is like I mentioned, like one of the things that I'm super proud of. I know we would have some questions. I actually want to hand this over back to Will to talk more about the next steps, so the last couple of steps. And yeah, we can also take some questions since we have 8 minutes. Will.
Let me just unmute myself. Abhi, thank you so much for presenting this evening. I know this was our first time. I think you did a great job, especially with all the content that we managed to cram in. As Abhi said, we will be sharing a recording. I know we have streamed it on YouTube. You will be able to find the recording there, but everyone who joined on Big Marker, we will be sending around an email tomorrow with the files, with the presentation, so you will have that all at your fingertips, so you can replay it and a little bit slower, and then you'll be able to work through. But Abhi, I think that was a great introduction to web development and HTML and CSS. As Abhi said, do check out the Career Foundry web development short course. It takes you a little bit further than this webinar, and as Abhi said, Abhi is the main star in that, so definitely check that out. It's got lots of great content in. Whilst we're here, I would also say do check out the full program. If you're interested, if this is kind of like inspired you to become a web developer, do check out Career Foundry's full web development program. It will take you within 5 to 10 months, depending on how much time you have to spare, from scratch to being a full web developer. And whilst I'm here, also check out the Career Foundry blog and also the events page for future events. We do want to use this time now, though, to answer some questions about web development. So if anyone's got any questions on LinkedIn or YouTube or Big Marker, just drop them now about the industry, about Abhi's path. We are open to questions, and this is a great chance to get them answered. But Abhi, I think to kick it off, maybe we'll just ask a couple of questions. How did you first think that web development could be a career for you? Oh, you've got to unmute yourself first, Abhi.
I feel like such a novice using this whole tool. I looked at some of the comments, and I'm really sorry, people, that I went super fast, but I had to cover all those things. Hopefully, you can look at the recording and it will be a bit more clear. But regarding how I got started, I think it was just the magic of the web, where you can think something and you can create it. And like we saw today, you don't need a lot of investment. You already have, since you're already here, you already have a browser, you already can download this free tool, VS Code, and you can already get started on your journey. So it's like it was for me. It was like a very low investment, and I could immediately see feedback. I could like write some code, like we saw today. We just wrote 20, 30 lines of code, and we had a website that looked decent, right? Like that totally could be like the first website that we built, and that whole instant feedback thing was something that really excited me about this field. And internet in general is something very close to my heart. I think it is a great resource for learning anything and everything. And yeah, like I said, we need to preserve it. And yeah, so doing something on the internet was always something I wanted to do.
Awesome. And what would your advice be to a beginner who's just thinking about maybe taking that first steps in web development? Is it the right time now to jump into a career in web development?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the tips part, I would say, you know, learn learn how the internet works. You know, I it's a fascinating thing. It's like network of networks. How computers speak with each other, how websites work. Just be curious and keep learning, and it takes time. It takes years and years until you become more and more fluent, and the learning never stops. But just keep working on side projects, keep building things. And one thing that I can specifically recommend is be a public learner. What that means is write about the things that you learn. So when you get started on your journey, start a blog. When you learn about HTML, say you learned about images today, it wasn't very clear, but then just force yourself to write about it. That would force you to like look on the internet, read more about the IMG tag, read more about the SRC attribute, experiment things, and write about it. That one is useful for other people who are in the same journey as you are, and two, it would help you. It would force you to clarify your concepts in your head, so that we can't convince ourselves that we understand something while we don't. Web development is, the internet is here to stay. Web development is, as it's a field that I am affiliated with. I think it is a great field to get into. And like I said, you don't need a lot of tools to get started, and you can very quickly, like the course helps you get to the point where you can get a junior front-end engineer or a junior full-stack engineer role within like 8 to 10 months after finishing the course. So it's a field that you can quickly get started on and transition into.
Is it also quite easy to move up in the field? So say that you do land that job as a junior web developer, is it quite easier to progress in the role, or does it take a lot of time?
I think so. Seniority in engineering roles are also, it's not just about the technical stuff, but it is also about the non-technical stuff. How you organize your stuff, how you work, how much ownership you show to the thing that you're working on. And if you have already worked in some other field, that kind of carries over into this new field. So you learn the hard skill, you learn the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you learn the technical skills, but then the growth happens when you can communicate effectively, when you can communicate with non-technical members of your company, and then get requirements from them, translate them into web applications or programming projects. So it is fast. The growth can be fast, but you have to remember that it is not just technical learnings, it is also your non-technical communication skills that help you progress as an engineer.
That's great advice. Soft skills, got to work on your soft skills. But the great thing is, I think we have a lot of events, and people think they're going to be starting off in a new career from scratch with absolutely no previous experience. But actually, lots of people have a lot of soft skills and transferable skills from their previous, studies and professions that they then bring to their new role. So you've got to remember, you're never really starting from scratch. We've got a couple of questions. I'm just going to jump over into Big Marker. Jennifer is asking a little bit of a specific question, but can you explain the purpose or rationale of the indentation of lines in the HTML file?
It is purely for it to be more readable. Like I said, HTML is a very forgiving language. It's a very permissive language. You can really write it all over the place. I could have written the whole website in one line, right? So it's all to, you don't write code for just the computer. You write it for yourself later, and you write it for your team that is also working on the same website or the same project and so on. And as an industry, we have adopted some best practices, and indentation is one of the best practices. It just makes it more visually clear what's the hierarchy of HTML elements. And you'll see this indentation paradigm followed in many, if not most, of the programming languages that you would encounter in your software engineering life.
Thanks, Jennifer, for the question. Thanks, Abhi.
Thank you.
Abhi, what if, for instance, what for say if I wanted to, change my job at the moment, and maybe I'll be a little bit of an older student, and I was going to be taught by you. Do you think it would be possible for me, as maybe a slightly more mature student, to be able to learn some of the things that you did this evening and pursue a career in web development? It's very specific. This is a very specific question.
I don't see why not. I just don't see what would be a blocker here, because I think as web developers, the privilege that we have is we could just grab our laptop, go to a cafe, spend a couple of hours learning about HTML, learning about CSS, learning about JavaScript. We could work on a side project. It's not the kind of skill. It's not the kind of field where you need like anything really. Like it's a very low maintenance field, and I don't also particularly think it needs like we saw today. We didn't use any math, we didn't use any science, we didn't use any concepts that take years to master. We just established some rules. We established this is how an HTML tag is. We established this is what a CSS selector is. In JavaScript, we'll establish a bit more, but that's all you need to get started, right? It's a very, I would say, if you keep doing it, it's not a very complicated field. And again, to repeat, the internet is amazing. You have all the resources that you need and all the support that you need and great people that you can ask questions. You can reach out to on LinkedIn, on GitHub, reach out to people and talk to them. And my personal experience is that people in this field are very open to mentoring others, very open to providing them resources. And there are really a lot of free resources and good quality paid resources out there. So I don't see why not.
So there could be hope for me then.
Yeah. Next webinar. Do it together.
And just one other question. I know that we talk about web development, but obviously it's a very kind of it's a very broad field, and there are many different avenues that you can go down. So for you in the field, what are the most exciting job titles that you could go down from starting off at your starting point of web developer and to where you could end up potentially?
Right. I would say when you start as a web developer, you usually start as a front-end developer, which is where you code a lot of the things that you saw today, like how the website looks like, or a back-end developer, which is a lot like business logic, databases, structuring data and so on, or a full stack developer, which is working on both sides of the field. And that's how you will usually start, like front-end intern, a full stack intern, and so on, and then you'll move from there. Depending on the kind of companies you end up at, the problems that you're solving, and it is always important to remember that you're solving problems as an engineer, right? The problems that you're solving can get more specific. So if you go to a big company that has a big social media that serves a lot of images or serves a lot of videos, YouTube, for example, you have YouTube would have problems that no one else would have. Probably Netflix would have it. And to solve those problems in the space of video content delivery, you need to have certain expertise and certain know-how, and that you would build slowly as your career progresses. In the beginning, it is all common stuff. It is all stuff that we looked at. It is all general stuff. But then the more you work in a particular domain, like video delivery, content delivery, or security or whatever, you become more senior in that, more experienced in that. And then you can land roles that are like, content delivery expert engineer, whatever, right? Like a security engineer because you specialized in web security, for example.
Definitely, I think that's a great answer. And I think just to shamelessly plug the Career Foundry Full program, it is a full stack program, so you will be learning lots of different sides. I'm going to take a couple more questions on Big Market. I am mindful of the time, and apologies if I pronounce anyone's name wrong. That's not intentional. But Ravindra is asking, I'm working to learn web development from scratch, what would be the best ways to proceed in terms of new roles?
I briefly touched this, but I would say have a GitHub profile that has projects on it. Anything that you build has to be on GitHub. Create a nice README so that people can look at that. Add those projects in your resume. Show people that you're genuinely curious about this field. You have worked on different kinds of projects. Go build like a to-do list. Go build a simple social network. Go build the like feature on Facebook, or the heart feature on Instagram, or whatever, right? Like, go build stuff and post it on the internet. Like, post it on GitHub, post it on your resume, and that is how you get into beginner roles. And yeah, I would say that's a very good way to get started.
So basically, don't be afraid to share, and also interact with the community. I think that's great advice. I think Ravindra's also got a second question, and what would be the best way to get hired in this competitive world that we live in?
Again, I think it is like, make yourself stand out. Really embrace public learning. Whatever you learn, post about it. Talk about it on social media. Write blog posts about it. Post about it on LinkedIn. Make projects about it, and then make tutorials about it. Teach other people exactly what you learned while making the project. Talk about the problems you faced. Talk about, oh, this documentation was lacking. I couldn't find help here, so I'm going to write that documentation because now I've overcome that problem. Just be initiative driven, publicly learn, show other people what you're working on, and that easily makes you stand out of the crowd in this competitive world.
Also, it's important to say, especially if you're a Career Foundry student, if you're doing the full stack web development program, the key takeaway is your portfolio. So as you're working along the program, you'll be creating a portfolio, and this will be assessed, and you'll go through this with both your mentor and your tutor. The fantastic thing about a portfolio is that you've put together all the projects within this portfolio. So when it comes to a situation where you're in the hiring seat, or you're being interviewed for that job, you will be able to explain all the projects that you've worked on, and you'll be able to present and take the person who's interviewing you through step by step of everything that you've put together. So that's the fantastic thing about having a portfolio and having your work easily accessible, is that it is your calling card. It is your business card into getting you into that new career. And it works because we've had thousands of students go through the program and land a job in tech. Abhi, where do you see yourself going in your career in web development going forward?
Like I said, I think I would love to stay close to the internet. I would love to understand how browsers work, how the internet works. And it's a never-ending journey. Every day you come across something that you have never heard before. And I've built my first website like in 2011. So it's been a while since I've been in this industry. But even today, every other day I come across something that I'm like, oh my God, this has existed since 20 years and I didn't have any idea. And that's what makes it exciting. And to me, it's just the journey that is more interesting than seeing myself somewhere at some point in time.
That's a great answer. Abhi, thank you so much for hosting the workshop tonight. I think it was a really great workshop. I know we did move fast, but there was a lot of fantastic content, and it's also not so easy to put all of this into a workshop, which is under an hour, under 45 minutes. So thank you so much. Also, thank you to the audience this evening for some great questions, and Abhi for answering all of those questions in such a fantastic way. Just before we move on, I'm just going to click the slide here very quickly. Currently, we are offering at Career Foundry 2 scholarships. So in celebration of Women's History Month, we're still offering our Women in Tech scholarship, and we're also offering a Solidarity partial scholarship. And all you have to do to be able to apply for one of those is click the book a call, which is on Big Marker, and book a call with one of our program advisors. I know them all personally, absolutely delightful team, and they're there to answer any questions that you may have about the curriculum, jobs in your locality, our dual mentorship model, anything related to tech and working in tech. So do book a call with them. They're on hand to answer any questions that you may have. And that said, I think that's everything. Abhi, thanks once again. And also thank you for all the team that put this together and made this happen. So Abhi, thank you. And we will see you again very soon, because I think this is the start of something special.
Thank you, Will, and thank you everyone for attending this. And yeah, hope to see you soon.
Also shout out to any of Abby's friends and family who are watching tonight. We love to see you. Okay.